It is really an honor to be here with you today on this incredible day, your commencement. And I remember very well how it was to sit and to watch someone stand on a podium and share their lifetime of advice. I'm not here to dispense a lifetime of advice. I'm still amidst of it. But I will share a few reflections on what guided me to take perhaps the more unusual path than many of my classmates, the path of an entrepreneurial life. It is often said that those few years, that decade after you graduate, is the most transformational and formative decade of your lives. So today is important. Today is important, of course, because it's your commencement, but today is also important because it's the first day of the rest of your lives. And let's be very clear, our future is just a chain of many todays. The author Annie Dillard, the American author, said, "How you spend your day is how you spend your life." And so the question then becomes, how do we make the most of today? Each one of us can answer this question for themselves. And I know we will have as many answers as are people in this room. Over the next quarter of an hour, I want to share my answer, and I want to share it in the form of 3 stories, just 3 stories. The first story is, I was 22, and it was my first time working for a fast-growing tech startup in Silicon Valley. I was the first employee, was founded by 3 others, also about my age, and the company was called SwipeGood, and we were building a service where credit card holders could register their credit card, and every time on that website, every time it would see that you'd purchased something, it would round it up to the next dollar, and it would take that little bit of change, and you could figure out whether you wanted to give it to Médecins Sans Frontières, or if you wanted to give it to any other charity that you felt inclined to, for example. And so that was, to me, the first time I really felt like I was working on something important. Because just imagine all of that consumption we have every time we could round it up and make a difference. We could use technology for good. We could be this innovative team that changes things, that disrupts maybe even an industry in a small way. And within a matter of weeks, we saw first successes. We were accepted into Y Combinator, which is an accelerator program in Silicon Valley, where the likes of Airbnb and Dropbox have also graduated from. We raised over the next few months $500,000, and it was incredible. And at the same time, in all frankness, our young business faced a pretty long list of problems. And up until then, problems to me were either something theoretical that I would solve at school, or it was something that I just found quite irritating and annoying, and I didn't want to waste my time or my energy with dealing with problems. I like to ignore them, and it made me feel uncomfortable when there were so many of them lying around. So I later learned, of course, that every young business has a whole lot of problems, and this was something very normal, but to me it was not at the time. And it got to a point where the CEO of the company and co-founder sat me down and he said, "Hey, I've noticed this." And he came up to me and he sort of tried to explain to me that I was thinking about it all wrong. Problems are a source of inspiration to us entrepreneurs, Sunnie. And I looked at him and I was like, "Well, what do you mean?" He's like, "You don't understand. Every entrepreneurial venture that has ever been started was started because someone wanted to solve a problem. So problems are the starting point. If you start to pay attention to any problem you might encounter in your life, you're just a step away from a business idea, because you might just be able to solve that problem not only for yourself, but for others. And if you can solve it for others, you're all business school students, or many of you are, well, you can maybe charge something for that. And that then becomes the beginning of an entrepreneurial venture. So problems are really a source of inspiration. Problems are something that you should engage with, that is important, because it might be the beginning of an entrepreneurial career. In fact, it's the basis for all entrepreneurship we see in this world. So the second story is when we started our company, Inspire 9 to 5. It's a consultancy focused on organizational change and digital transformation. I had just turned 25, and because I had just turned 25 and I co-founded this company with my brother, who was 19 at the time, you might imagine I didn't have much marketing budget, and I didn't have much of a professional network here in Zurich, well, in Switzerland, because I'd studied in the US, and it was really quite a question of how were you gonna make it happen? And, you know, it wasn't easy. And of course you sort of ask yourself, well, how's that going to come to pass? How are you going to find that first client who believes in you? How are you going to find, I wanted to, at the time, as most consultancies, I wanted to write a nonfiction book. I had a few ideas, and I was really curious, how the hell am I going to find a publisher, anyone who's ever interested in this? And it wasn't clear. For a very long time, it was embracing uncertainty, and it was, you know, showing up to that uncertainty, not with inaction, but with taking action to the best of your knowledge in that very moment. And every time you'd show up, and you'd show up again, and you'd show up at events and conferences, for example, or trade shows, but you'd also show up when nobody's watching and just do the work and try things, try your best guess and see where it got you. And many best guesses were not that great, and a few were. And at one of those conferences, I did eventually meet my first client. At another trade show, I did eventually find a book which was somehow related to what I wanted to do, and called the author, and the author introduced me to the publisher, and finally that was coming to pass as well. But it wasn't clear how that was going to happen. I didn't wake up in the morning that day and go to the trade show and be like, oh, today I'm going to meet my publisher. And I didn't go to that small startup conference, which really didn't look like it was the best use of my time when I got there, and be like, oh, today I'm going to meet my first client. This is where it's going to happen. It just happened by showing up again and again and again. Eventually, you get to a place where the likelihood that you get lucky is high because you've just kept on showing up. And so I think that's the second thing I want to encourage you is keep on showing up. Show up even when you're not quite sure if it's going to work out. Keep on showing up and just do it long enough until luck strikes. Luck is not just something that happens by chance. Luck is something, at least the entrepreneurs will tell you, luck is something that you got to show up for again and again and again. The third story. Another instant when showing up and luck came together for me was in 2015. I had published my book a few months back at that point, and as you have to, and as you want to, once you've put the book out there, you want to share it with others and present it. And so at one of these events, I had someone come up to me from a small village in Switzerland who was engaged there with local politics. Now you could say, well, you know, I wasn't in politics, I was in business, I was trying to start my company, what do I want, you know, what is a local politician going to do for me? And really, he just was like, Sunnie, I think it's great what you're doing. I know this other young politician who's younger than you, and I think you guys should meet. And I was like, sure, I'm not quite sure what to expect, but yeah. And then I met that young politician, and we had a good conversation, and he said, well, you know, I'm speaking on a panel to share with some other politicians what perhaps the canton of Zurich should do to encourage more young entrepreneurs like yourself. So maybe you would have something to add to that. And I said, well, sure, not quite sure what to expect, but might as well. And so this event came to pass. And the evening before, we were at a speaker's dinner, and there were several CEOs of large corporations and national level politicians. And I just happened to be seated across from one of those politicians, and we started to talk about the things I sort of knew something about at age 27. Entrepreneurship, I could share my Y Combinator story, technology and innovation, because funny enough, this hotel, Swiss Hotel, now it's the Fairmont, but Swiss Hotel, which belongs to the Fairmont Raffles Hotel Group, was my first client. And I could share how we had helped a lot of the employees and the staff get digitally connected, because that was a project we did in 2013. And so he talked about digital transformation and making that happen. And so in the end, he said, well, you know, I'm right now involved in a project that's supposed to bring private-public actors together around digital transformation, corporations, universities, political actors, to work together to turn digital into a leading innovation hub. Would you be interested in maybe applying to build up the project office with your company Inspire 925? And again, guess what I said? Yes. Not quite sure what to expect, but I'll apply. And so this was such a formative experience for me, to work with 20 CEOs of Switzerland's leading companies, with politicians, with many different stakeholders. And I think just like with climate change, it's going to be so important to be able to engage with all parts of society, of the business sector, of the public sector. And I really encourage you to engage with everyone, because that is truly how you do advance things within your country and beyond. But beyond that, I really want to encourage you, as you go out into the world, to say yes, even if you don't quite know what to expect. It is remarkable the places you end up in. And I know that there are many reasons, and many of us tend to think, when we get an opportunity offered where we're not quite sure what to expect, we might say no. No, because I don't have the experience. No, because, well, it hasn't been done before. No, because, you know, I think there are probably a lot of requirements with 20 corporate CEOs, and that seems a little overwhelming. There are all these reasons to say no when you're not quite sure, to default to no decision, which is what you spoke about. But my learning from everything I've done is that saying yes, even when you don't quite know what to expect, can launch you into amazing trajectories. And I encourage you to try it and to see what happens. So, saying yes when you're not quite sure what to expect is an important entrepreneurial trait. Because saying yes is saying yes to trusting yourself, and saying yes to opportunities that will push you out of your comfort zone and into your learning zone. And your and my generation will probably be spending most of our lives in our learning zone, and I really hope we do. Because here's the thing, chances are we will face more complexity and uncertainty, because we were born into a moment when digital technologies, in a way, just got to a place where they could take a giant leap forward. We truly were born into a technological revolution, and the rate of technological progress over the past 10 years alone has been staggering, as I think many of you have also experienced during the pandemic, just how so many parts of our society have changed. And so I think we're actually, even though some might say, oh, we've been through it now, and we're in the middle of a digital transformation, I actually think we're at the very beginning. I think we're just starting to begin to understand how fast technological progress can happen and what it will mean. So Over the course of our career spans, new technologies will continue to emerge, and many of us will work in jobs that today have not yet been created. As a consequence, the entrepreneurial ability to say yes, even when you're not quite sure what to expect, even when nobody has done that job before because it was not invented yet, is really important. So wrapping up, why is seeing problems as a source of inspiration? Why is showing up again and again and again? Why is saying yes, even when you don't quite know what to expect, the most important advice I can give you on the day you graduate? Well, it's not just that I want you to make the most of today. I want all of us to make the most of every day and every today that is to follow and that we will be sharing on this planet. I want our future to be bright. And I think the best shot we got at this is if more people embrace an entrepreneurial approach to their life. Because let's be honest, it has been said, you and me, your generation and mine, will face a lot of tough problems in our lifetime. Be it climate change, or be it the war in Ukraine, be it the fact that we're just producing too much CO2 and overshooting planetary boundaries as we speak. Is it that we have global inflation all the way to the health crisis and the political demise of democracy? We're all in that. And I think, truly, this long list of challenges will not get shorter unless we choose to think differently about problems and to keep on showing up and to say yes and to make decisions even when we're not quite sure how it's going to turn out. So our world desperately needs more entrepreneurial people. People who tackle problems head on, who show up again and again and say yes to new ideas in the face of uncertainty. Now, let me be very clear. I'm not saying all of you should start a company. That's not what I'm saying. You can be an entrepreneurial corporate executive. You can be an entrepreneurial diplomat, an entrepreneurial professor, an entrepreneurial scientist, an entrepreneurial historian, an entrepreneurial artist, an entrepreneurial computer scientist, an engineer, whatever it is you desire to do for work. And I encourage you to do what you desire for work. Being entrepreneurial is not first and foremost a job description. Being entrepreneurial is a way of life, and one, I hope, class of 2022, that you embrace and that you make your own. Congratulations and all the very best today and every day.